I always believed family meant support, not servitude. For 15 years, I've been the reliable one, the aunt who never said no, the sister who always stepped up. At 48, with a career in financial consulting that I'd built from scratch, after my divorce, I finally had stability. My daughters were in college, and for the first time in decades, I could breathe, or so I thought. The text from my sister Miranda came on a Tuesday morning while I was preparing for a client meeting. "Great news, Elaine. Mom and Dad's 50th anniversary trip is all set for the last 2 weeks of June. I told them not to worry about the kids because you'll be available to watch them while we all have fun and relax. They're so relieved." I stared at my phone, feeling that familiar knot form in my stomach. Miranda had 4 children, twins age 7 and 2 teenagers, and my brother Mark had 3 kids under 10. 7 children in total, for 2 weeks. While they all went on vacation without me, I hadn't been consulted. I hadn't been asked. I had been assigned. What made it worse was that I'd already planned my own getaway during those exact dates. After years of putting everyone else first, I had finally booked a writing retreat in Maine, a small cottage overlooking the Atlantic where I planned to finally start the novel I'd been dreaming about for 20 years. I'd paid the deposit. I'd arranged time off work. I'd even started outlining chapters. But now, according to Miranda, I was babysitting. Again. I could have responded immediately, told her I was unavailable, that I had my own plans. That's what a normal person would do. But something in me hesitated. Maybe it was the cumulative weight of all the times I'd been voluntold to help, all the times my plans had been deemed less important than everyone else's. Or maybe it was simply exhaustion from being the family safety net for so long. Whatever the reason, I simply replied, "Oh, tell me more about it when you have time." Then I put my phone away and went to my meeting. That evening, Miranda called to fill me in on all the details. They'd rented a beach house in Florida. Mom and Dad would be celebrating 50 years together with their children and their spouses. There would be dinners out, boat trips, a renewal of vows on the beach. And of course, you'll be at my house with all the kids, Miranda said matter-of-factly. The twins have swimming lessons Tuesdays and Thursdays. Mark's youngest has his therapy appointments on Wednesdays. Oh, and Jaden is doing summer soccer, so that's Saturday mornings. I'll leave you a calendar. Miranda, I began carefully. I'm not sure I can. Don't worry about money, she interrupted. We'll all chip in for groceries and you can use my car for running the kids around. It's not like you'd be spending money on a vacation anyway, right? That comment stung. The unspoken assumption that I, as the divorced sister without a spouse, wouldn't have any plans worth considering. Actually, I do have some plans during... Oh, Elaine, Miranda sighed dramatically. Mom and Dad are turning 50 years married. This is important to the family. Whatever you've got going on can wait, right? We really need you to do this. There it was, the guilt trip wrapped in family obligation. I'd heard it so many times before, and I'd always relented, always prioritized others' needs above my own. But this time, something felt different. Maybe it was the cottage in Maine calling to me, or maybe it was simply that I'd reached my limit. Let me check some things and get back to you, I replied, keeping my voice neutral. There's nothing to check, Elaine. We need you to do this. The family needs you. It's already decided. After we hung up, I sat in my quiet living room, my hands shaking slightly. Already decided, without my input, without consideration for my life or plans. Just, like always, that night, I didn't call Miranda back. I didn't cancel my cottage reservation either. Instead, I lay awake thinking about patterns, specifically the pattern I'd allowed to form in my family where my time and choices were considered communal. Property, where no wasn't a word I was permitted to use. The next morning, my mother called. Elaine, sweetheart, I'm so excited about our anniversary trip. Miranda tells me you're all set to watch the children. We're so grateful. You know none of this would be possible without you. I could hear the genuine warmth in her voice, which made what I needed to say even harder. Mom, the thing is, I actually have plans during those 2 weeks in June. I've booked a writing retreat in Maine. A pause. A writing retreat? You mean like a little vacation? It's not just a vacation, Mom. I've been wanting to write this book for years, and I finally made arrangements to do it. The deposit is non-refundable. Another pause, longer this time. Well, surely a deposit is less important than your family, honey. Miranda and Mark have already bought their plane tickets. Those are non-refundable too, you know. Did anyone consider checking with me before making those purchases? I asked quietly. Elaine, my mother's voice took on that disappointed tone I knew so well. Family has to come first. Your father and I have supported all of you through everything. Is 2 weeks of babysitting really too much to ask in return? I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of expectation pressing down on me. Let me think about it, Mom. There's nothing to think about. We're counting on you. After 3 days of similar conversations, texts and voicemails from Miranda, Mark, and even my father, I made a decision. I wouldn't argue anymore. I wouldn't justify or defend my choice. I would simply make it. I confirmed my reservation at the main cottage and paid the remaining balance. I arranged for my mail to be held. I even asked my neighbor to water my plants while I was away. But I told no one in my family about any of this. Instead, when Miranda texted again about leaving me detailed instructions for the children's schedules, I simply replied, okay. When my mother called to thank me for being such a dear and always putting family first, I just mumbled something non-committal. To everyone in my family, I appeared to have accepted my assigned role. The reliable Elaine, sacrificing her own plans once again for the greater good of the family. But inside, for the first time in my adult life, I was planning a silent rebellion. The weeks passed, and the anniversary trip drew closer. Miranda dropped. By one evening, with 3 ring binders, one for each household's children, containing detailed schedules, medical information, favorite foods, bedtime routines, and emergency contacts. I've color-coded everything, she explained proudly, spreading the binders on my kitchen table. Blue for Mark's kids, purple for mine. I've also created a master calendar for you to keep track of everyone's activities. I nodded, flipping through the meticulously organized pages while something cold and resolute solidified within me. You're being awfully quiet, Miranda remarked, studying me. You're not still upset about having to babysit, are you? Because honestly, Elaine, it's not like you had any real plans. A writing retreat? She rolled her eyes slightly. You can write any time. You're right, I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. It's fine. Miranda looked relieved. Good, because we're all really looking forward to this trip, and it would be awful if you made everyone feel guilty about it. I nodded again, saying nothing. 3 days before the family's departure date, I packed my car, laptop, notebooks, the draft of my novel outline, clothes for 2 weeks in coastal Maine. I left at dawn, driving north instead of to Miranda's house where I was expected to move in temporarily to begin my childcare duties. I turned off my phone before I even left my driveway. The cottage was even more beautiful than the photos online had suggested. Perched on a rocky outcropping overlooking the Atlantic, it was small but perfectly appointed. A writing desk faced the ocean. The kitchen was stocked with basics. The bedroom had windows that could be left open to let in the sound of waves breaking against the shore. For the first time in what felt like years, I took a deep breath that didn't hurt my chest. I waited until I was settled in before turning my phone back on. As expected, there were dozens of missed calls and text messages escalating in urgency and anger. Miranda, 7:15 a.m. Where are you? We're waiting. Miranda, 7:30 a.m. Elaine, this isn't funny. We have a flight at noon. Miranda, 8:00 a.m. Answer. Your phone? Mom, 8:45 a.m. Elaine, dear, is everything all right? Miranda says you haven't arrived to watch the children. Mark, 9:20 a.m. What the hell, Elaine? You're going to make us miss our flight. Miranda, 10:05 a.m. I can't believe you would do this to us, to the family. Dad is beside himself. Mom, 11:30 a.m. We've had to make other arrangements at the last minute. Your father is very upset. Please call us immediately. Mark, 12:45 p.m. Flight delayed while Miranda hysterically calls every babysitter in town. Real nice, sis. Miranda, 1:30 p.m. We found someone to watch the kids. No thanks to you. Don't bother explaining yourself. You're dead to me. Dad, 2:15 p.m. Your mother is in tears. I never thought a daughter of mine would betray her family like this. And on, a cascade of guilt, anger, and accusations. The word traitor appeared multiple times, along with selfish, childish, and unforgivable. I read them all, feeling strangely detached, as if these messages were directed at someone else. Then I composed a single text and sent it to my parents, Miranda and Mark. I'm safe and well. I have gone on the writing retreat I planned months ago and told you about repeatedly. I understand you're upset, but I made my unavailability clear from the beginning. I hope you enjoy your anniversary trip, and I'll be in touch when I return in 2 weeks. Then I silenced my phone again and placed it in a drawer. The first 3 days of my retreat passed in a blur of peace and productivity. I wrote more in those 3 days than I had in the previous 3 years. Without the constant interruptions of work and family obligations, my mind felt clearer, my imagination more vivid. The story I'd been carrying inside me for so long began to take shape on the page. On the 4th day, there was a knock at the door of my cottage. I froze, my fingers hovering over my laptop keyboard. No one knew I was here except the property owner, who lived several miles away. The knock came again, more insistent this time. Cautiously, I approached the door and peered through the peephole. My brother Mark stood on the porch, arms crossed, looking grim. My heart sank as I slowly opened the door. How did you find me? Credit card statements, he said bluntly. Miranda called your bank pretending to be you, concerned about fraudulent charges. They told her where you'd been making purchases this week. I felt a surge of anger at this invasion of privacy, but kept my voice level. That's actually illegal. So is abandoning your family, he shot back. I didn't abandon anyone. I declined to babysit, which is my right. I told everyone I had plans. Mark pushed past me into the cottage. Do you have any idea what you've done? Mom and Dad had to cancel their anniversary trip. Miranda and I had to cut our vacation short. The kids are devastated. All because you decided your writing, he made air quotes with his fingers, was more important than family. I closed the door and faced my brother. Why are you here, Mark? To bring you back, obviously. To make you face everyone and explain yourself. I took a deep breath. I'm not going back until my retreat is over. And I don't owe anyone an explanation beyond what I've already given. Mark stared at me as if I'd grown a second head. Who are you? The Elaine I know would never behave.
This way.
Maybe you don't know me as well as you think, I replied quietly. Maybe none of you do, because if you did, you'd understand that I matter too. My plans matter. My life matters. This is ridiculous. Pack your things. We're leaving. No, Mark. I'm not going anywhere. And neither are you if you broke into my home and tried to force me to leave with you. His face flushed. Are you threatening me? I'm stating facts. Now please leave. We can talk when I return home in 10 days. Mom is heartbroken, he said, his voice lower now, playing the guilt card that had always worked so well on me in the past. But something had changed during my days of solitude and creativity. The guilt was still there. I could feel it tugging at me, but it no longer had the power to override my sense of self-worth. I'm sorry to hear that, I said genuinely. I love Mom and Dad. I love all of you. But that doesn't mean I have to sacrifice my own happiness for yours, especially when you didn't even have the courtesy to ask rather than tell. We stared at each other for a long moment. Then Mark shook his head in disgust. You'll regret this, Elaine. Some things can't be undone. After he left, I sat on the porch overlooking the ocean, shaking slightly from the confrontation. Part of me wanted to pack up and go home, to beg forgiveness, to slip back into my comfortable role as the family safety net. It would be easier in the short term. But another part, a part that was growing stronger each day, knew that if I gave in now, nothing would ever change. The patterns would continue. My needs would always come last. I picked up my phone and did something I'd never done before. I called my therapist, whom I'd been seeing since my divorce 3 years ago, and requested an emergency session via video call. What they're doing has a name, she told me after I'd explained the situation. It's called emotional blackmail. They're using fear, obligation, and guilt to control your behavior. But they're my family, I said. Isn't family supposed to come first? Family is important, she agreed. But healthy family relationships involve mutual respect, consideration, and boundaries. What you're describing is one-sided. So what do I do now? Mark knows where I am. They might all show up next. What do you want to do? She asked. The question caught me off guard. For so long, what I wanted had been irrelevant in family matters. What was expected of me was all that mattered. I want to finish my retreat, I said slowly. I want to write my book. I want them to understand that I love them, but I also have a right to my own life. Then that's what you do, she said simply. You hold your boundary. It will be uncomfortable, even painful. They'll resist. But if you want things to change, you have to be the one to change them. After our session, I sent another text to my family. Mark visited me today, which was inappropriate and invasive. I understand everyone is upset, but I will be staying at my retreat until the originally planned date. I am turning off my phone again. We can discuss this when I return, but please know that showing up uninvited will only damage our relationship further. I love you all, but I need this time for myself. Then, as promised, I turned off my phone again and returned to my writing. The remaining days of my retreat passed peacefully. Without further interruptions, I completed a solid first draft of 6 chapters of my novel. Each morning, I woke to the sound of waves and seagulls. Each evening, I watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. In between, I wrote the story that had been waiting inside me for years. On my final morning at the cottage, I took a long walk along the rocky shore, thinking about what would happen when I returned home. The anger and hurt from my family wouldn't have disappeared. There would be difficult conversations ahead. Relationships that had operated one way for decades would need to be renegotiated, and not everyone would be happy about that. But something fundamental had shifted inside me. For the first time in my adult life, I had put myself first, not in a selfish way, but in a necessary one. I had honored my own needs and dreams instead of automatically sacrificing them for others. And despite the conflict it had caused, despite the guilt I still felt, I didn't regret it. I drove home with my manuscript beside me on the passenger seat, a tangible reminder of what I had accomplished during my 2 weeks of self-reclamation. When I arrived at my house, there was a note taped to the door in my mother's handwriting. Family meeting. Our house, 7 p.m. tonight. Please come. I showered, changed, and prepared myself mentally for what was to come. At 6:55 p.m., I pulled into my parents' driveway. All the family cars were already there, Miranda's minivan, Mark's SUV, my parents' sedan. A united front. I took a deep breath and walked inside. They were all gathered in the living room. Mom and Dad on the sofa, Miranda in the armchair, Mark leaning against the fireplace. All eyes turned to me as I entered. "Sit down, Elaine," my father said, gesturing to the lone empty chair positioned directly across from the sofa. It felt like an interrogation setup. "I'd rather stand, thanks," I replied calmly. Miranda made a small, disgusted sound. "Still being difficult, I see." Didn't respond to the bait. Instead, I looked at each of them in turn. "I understand everyone's upset with me, and I'm here to talk about it. But first, I want to say that I'm not sorry for taking my retreat. I am sorry that it caused disruption to your plans, but I was clear from the beginning that I wasn't available during those dates." "You said you'd think about it," my mother interrupted. "Then you just disappeared." After saying I'd think about it, I continued to say I had plans and couldn't do it. But no one listened. Everyone just assumed I'd give in eventually, like I always do. "Because that's what family does," my father said firmly. "We sacrifice for each other." "Do we?" I asked quietly. "Do we all sacrifice equally? When was the last time any of you changed your plans to accommodate mine?" Silence fell over the room. "Elaine," Miranda finally said, her voice tight. "You're single. You don't have children. Your life is simpler. That's just reality." "My life isn't simpler," I corrected her. "It's different. I have a career, friends, interests, and dreams, just like you do. The difference is that I've always been expected to put mine aside whenever anyone else in this family needed something." "That's not fair," Mark interjected. "We appreciate everything you do." "Appreciation isn't the same as respect," I said. "If you respected me, you would have asked if I was available to babysit, not informed me that I would be doing it." My mother looked pained. "Sweetheart, we just thought, we assumed." "That's the problem, Mom. Everyone assumed. Everyone always assumes that Elaine will handle it. Elaine will step up. Elaine will sacrifice. And until now, I've reinforced that assumption by always saying yes, even when I wanted to say no." "So this was what? Some kind of rebellion?" my father asked, frowning. "No, Dad. This was me finally recognizing that I have value beyond what I can do for other people. This was me setting a boundary." Miranda stood up suddenly. "Well, your boundary caused us to cancel a trip we'd been planning for months. Mom and Dad missed their anniversary celebration. The kids were confused and upset. Also, you could go write some book no one will probably ever read." Her words stung, but I held my ground. "You're angry, and you have a right to be. But consider this. If you had asked me about babysitting instead of telling me, if you had respected my initial refusal instead of pushing, if you had worked with me to find another solution instead of assuming I would just fall in line, none of this would have happened." A heavy silence fell over the room. Finally, my father spoke. "Elaine, we've always counted on you. You've always been the reliable one. And I still want to be there for all of you," I replied. "But on terms that respect me as a person with my own life and needs. I want to be asked, not told. I want my no to be accepted without guilt or pressure. I want the same consideration that I've always given all of you." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "I never thought about it that way. We just got so used to you always being there." "I know, Mom. And that's partly my fault for never setting boundaries before. But I'm setting them now, and I need all of you to respect them if we're going to have a healthy relationship moving forward." Miranda was still standing, arms crossed defensively. "So what? We're just supposed to pretend nothing happened? That you didn't ruin everything?" I took a deep breath. "No. I'm asking you to acknowledge that the way this family has been treating me isn't fair or balanced. I'm asking for change from all of us, myself included. Because I do love you, all of you. I just need to love myself too." Mark pushed away from the fireplace. "This is getting too touchy-feely for me. The bottom line is, Elaine flaked on watching the kids, and it screwed up everyone's plans." "The bottom line," I countered, "is that no one had the right to make Plans that depended on my time and labor without my explicit agreement. Would you do that to anyone else? Would you do it to a friend, a colleague, a neighbor? He didn't answer. What did you do when I wasn't available? I asked. How did you solve the childcare issue? Miranda sniffed. We hired 2 college students as nannies. It cost a fortune. So there were other options all along, I pointed out. Options that didn't involve taking me for granted. It wasn't the same, my mother said sadly. It wasn't family. No, it wasn't, I agreed. But maybe that's okay sometimes. Maybe it's okay for all of us to occasionally prioritize our own needs, hire help when necessary, and not expect one person to always be the solution to everyone else's problems. The room fell silent again as my words sank in. I could see resistance. In Mark's stance, hurt in Miranda's eyes, confusion on my mother's face. But in my father's expression, there was something else, a glimmer of understanding. You finished your book? He asked unexpectedly. The question caught me off guard. The first 6 chapters, I answered. It's a start. He nodded slowly. Your grandmother, my mother, always wanted to write a book. Did you know that? I shook my head, surprised by this revelation. She talked about it sometimes when I was young, had a whole story planned out in her head. But then she got married, had children, took care of my father when he got sick. The book never happened. He looked at me directly. I don't want that for you, Elaine. Something in the atmosphere of the room shifted. My mother reached for my father's hand. None of us do, she said softly. We love you, sweetheart. We got too comfortable with how things were. Miranda didn't say anything, but she sat back down, some of the rigidity leaving her posture. Mark sighed heavily. I still think you could have handled it differently, but I guess we could have too. It wasn't a full reconciliation. There were still hurt feelings on all sides, still adjustments to be made, still new patterns to establish. But it was a beginning, a recognition that something needed to change, and that the responsibility for that change didn't rest solely with me. I think we all need some time to process, I suggested. But I want you to know that I'm not pulling away from the family. I'm just asking for my place in it to be different than it has been. My mother nodded tearfully. Will you stay for dinner? I made your favorite lasagna. I smiled, feeling a subtle shift in our dynamic already. She was asking, not assuming. I'd like that, Mom. Thank you. Over dinner, the conversation gradually moved to other topics. There was still an undercurrent of tension, but it wasn't the wall of hostility I'd faced when I first arrived. Miranda even asked me about my book, though I could tell from her tone that she was making an effort rather than feeling genuine interest. It's a story about a woman who discovers her own voice in midlife, I told her. After years of putting everyone else first. Her eyes met mine briefly, a flash of recognition passing between us before she looked away. As I drove home that night, I felt simultaneously exhausted and liberated. The road ahead with my family wouldn't be smooth or easy. Old habits don't change overnight, and I knew there would be backsliding, testing of boundaries, and probably more conflict before we found a new equilibrium. But for the first time, I had hope that such an equilibrium was possible, one where I could be part of my family without being consumed by it, where I could give without being drained, where my needs and dreams would be given the same weight as everyone else's. 2 months later, I received an acceptance letter from a literary agent who was interested in representing my novel. When I called to share the news, my mother suggested a family dinner to celebrate. We're all so proud of you, Elaine, she said, and we want to hear all about what happens next with your book. As I hung up the phone, I realized something important. The family crisis that had felt so catastrophic at the time had actually been necessary, A breaking point that forced all of us to reevaluate patterns that had been harmful, even if they'd been comfortable. My sister still occasionally slips into her old habit of assuming my availability. My brother sometimes makes dismissive comments about my writing hobby. Family dynamics don't transform overnight. But there's a new awareness now, a consciousness about the way we treat each other. I've learned to state my boundaries clearly and hold them firmly, without guilt or apology. And slowly, gradually, my family is learning to respect them. I was called a traitor for finally putting myself first. But in truth, the only person I had been betraying all those years was myself, by staying silent, by accepting less than I deserved, by believing that my worth was tied to my utility to others. Now I know better. And though the journey hasn't been easy, I wouldn't go back to the way things were for anything in the world. Because the woman who returned from that writing retreat in Maine was different from the one who left, stronger, clearer, and finally, ready to live her own life, not just in service to everyone else's. Sometimes, being called a traitor is simply the price of becoming the person you were always meant to be.